So how do you make a really good first impression, especially when you're meeting people for the very, very first time? I recently had the awesome experience of meeting four other complete strangers for dinner, and I'm going to let you know the impression that was left and some do's and some don'ts of what you can do to make really good first impressions. If that interests you, make sure to stick around. We all know that communication skills are crucial for any relationship. And when somebody has those skills, oh my gosh, they make so much of an impression to you and to me. But we've also had those moments where we're really nervous to talk with people because we don't know how our request or our message will be received. Well, this podcast, fortunately, is going to go over all the things, the science, the tips, the tricks, and the ways to make sure that you can have the best relationships that you can through the way that you communicate. And after listening to these episodes, you can do so fearlessly with confidence, knowing that you can be relatable to anybody you choose. Welcome to the Attractive Relationships Podcast. So again, like I was saying in the intro, I had dinner with four complete random strangers. And the reason why this came about was because I just felt kind of adventurous. This ad came across my phone and said, would you like to have dinner with strangers? And that sounds terrifying, I think, for most people. But I thought, man, what an opportunity. So I said yes to that. And that's how I came about meeting these strangers. We met at a restaurant in Dallas. Again, we've never met before. We didn't know each other's names. We had very, very limited information about each other. So if you can imagine yourself in a situation like that, you've probably been in those situations when you went off to college for the first time and made new friends, when you got hired with a new company, you've never really met anybody there before, or when you've gone on a date. Even if you are in a leadership position, especially a leadership position where people don't know who you are, no matter what position, we all have these scenarios in life where we meet people for the first time and we care about how our image is portrayed towards others. And so what I want to do is give you a few tips that might make you feel a little bit more comfortable meeting people for the first time. And I want to start off with what most people fear. Most people fear as coming across as not who they really are. All right. Maybe they come across as silly, or too stupid, or not intelligent, or not bright, or not, whatever the insecurities that we as humans individually have. We're afraid those insecurities might show. And we might give a bad image of who we really are. And I've said in a podcast previously, and I continue to say this because this is true. Anytime we walk into a situation where we are more focused on how we are coming off, where your focus is usually what will happen. Right? If your focus is, I'm afraid of not coming across the right way, there is a higher chance that you are not going to come across the right way. Where should our focus then be? Our focus should be on the other people. We are walking in, not into the story of you, not like I wouldn't walk in and it's not the story of me that I'm most concerned about. I am concerned about how am I fitting into their story. I'm interested in you. I'm interested in the person next to you. I'm interested in everybody else and what makes their story of their life interesting. This is a mindset. All right. If you come in with that mindset, then any of the principles or the tactics that I tell you afterwards is so much easier to follow because you are now relaxed as you realize that meeting people for the first time, it's not all about you. Even if you are walking in as the new manager or executive of a company, even if you walk in that way, and maybe part of it is about you because you're the new big boss, right? When you step on a podium or you're shaking hands with people for the first time, The quicker you can get off of yourself and show interest into other people, you will instantly be more likable. So, all right, that goes into, again, one of the 3 C's I always talk about is to lead with curiosity. I am curious about your story of your life. And if you walk into a room of strangers and you are genuinely curious about their story, you are more concerned about that than telling your own, you will make a fantastic impression. I can tell you now that there have been times where I have said almost nothing about myself, and people tell me everything about themselves. And all of a sudden, I'm a likable person to them, even though they don't know me that well. I think the best relationships obviously are a little bit more reciprocal than that. I'm just saying it as an example from personal experience, and from that, when I taught people these things and hear their feedback, same experience, curious about other people. Now, as I tell you about what happened with this group of strangers that obviously people eventually get around to, I was like, well, what do you do for a living? And I say, well, you know how people struggle with communication. Yeah. It's like, well, I help people who struggle with communication to do better so they can connect with people the way they want to. And one of the guys, his name is Mark, and he's a really, really cool guy. He said, you know what? It's really interesting you say that, because when you walked in, you just had this air of like confidence about you that was like magnetic. I was like, wow, what a compliment. you know? And so I said, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And that's not the first time I've heard that. I'm telling you this not to brag. I'm telling you this is because you can do this too. Hey guys, real quick, I am sure that all of us have had the moments where we're a little nervous or afraid to talk to somebody because we don't know how they're going to respond. Are we going to be able to talk to our life partner without them getting upset? Or are we going to talk to our boss to get that raise or that interview for that job? If we ever get nervous in those moments, we have to fearlessly communicate in a way that's effective to get the things we want and need. And if you want to know how to consistently do that, there's a formula and a program on exactly how to do that. And it's called the Be Fearless and Effective Communicators Program. If you are interested in learning more about that, you can click the link that's in the show notes, or you can go to attractiverelationships.com/fearless. I recently went to a conference where somebody, again, unsolicited, later approached me and said, I noticed you from across the room because you had this posture that seemed very confident. And again, my response was, thank you, because that person didn't have to give that compliment. And so for you, one of the things that I talk about, not enough on this podcast, but I do teach when I teach communication skills, is your body language. When you walk into a room, you are communicating things with your body and your presence before you ever say anything out of your mouth. So if we walk into a room that's unfamiliar to us, what is the natural way to walk in? Well, if you watch people, you'll see this. You won't be able to unsee it. But a lot of people kind of have their eyes big, but they're also going to bring their shoulders up towards their ears, and they kind of maybe hunch their back, maybe round it a little bit. All these things to kind of make them feel small. Why? Because they're not sure of anything. Where do I put my jacket? What table do I go to? Where's the bar? Where's the restroom? And there's all these like unsure thoughts in their head that instead of walking in with confidence, like you would your own house, they walk in small and something along these lines. What I would encourage you to do is, again, walk in with the curiosity. You may not know where everything is. You may not know everybody. But if you can take your shoulders, at the very least, take your shoulders and pull them away from the ear, make the distance between your ear and your shoulders longer. And that automatically makes you appear way more confident, and you will feel that way. That energy will radiate. That's my secret. That's my secret that got these people unsolicited to make a compliment towards me. If you do that, and then my second tip, I've said this before, is to like show your hands, talk with your hands, even if it's just a little bit. Those two things of your body language will allow you to draw people into you, or at least from a distance, whether they say it to you or not. They'll say, that is a confident, charismatic person. So that's number one. Come in with the body language that portrays confidence. Even if you're not fully confident, if you just do those two things with your body language cues, it's going to help tremendously. All right. The next thing that I try to do is when you do meet somebody, get to know their names. And one of the secrets that I've recently learned, I'm going to share this with you now, because if you ever forget people's names, I know I do. This is a secret that I've been working with, and it seems to be working. If you want something to be in your long-term memory, at least for the evening, when somebody introduces their name to you, repeat it in your head for 30 seconds. Now, that might be difficult to do if there are a lot of people, but with practice, you'll get better at it. So again, with these 5 people or 4 other people that I was doing dinner with, whenever I shook their hand, there was like 2 of them I had to ask their name again. But once I asked their name for that second time, I just kept repeating it over and over in my head for 30 seconds, and I remembered their name. So guess what then happens when you remember somebody's name? When you call them by their name, they feel like you care. What kind of impression do you think that leaves with the people that you're talking to? It's massive. Also, 8, 9 times out of 10, they might feel more inspired to care about you because they're thinking, oh my gosh, this person remembered my name. I totally forgot theirs, which is great for you because this is an opportunity for you to show empathy towards them. All right. So I might be like, Amber, it was so nice to meet you. It's okay if you forgot my name. I usually forget people's names all the time. And just in case you forgot, my name is Rico. All right. Oh, thank you so much. I totally did forget your name, but I won't forget it now. And now they feel relieved. They feel like, man, this person really gets me. This person really cares about me. And hopefully, because you're a curious person and you actually like people, hopefully those things are true. And now you've got real connections with people. So again, if you're making great first impressions, body language is number one. Right when you walk into the room, it matters. When you shake people's hands and remember their name, another great way to make initial first impressions. And the third way I'm going to leave you with, I guess is really the fourth way, because if we go back to the first, remember what that was, and that was like your mindset. Be curious, make it about them, not about you. But the fourth thing I would say is your voice. Now, you're born with your voice. You can't really change it, but you can modify the tone that you use. All right, so there's 3 different kinds of tones. I'm not going to go into the details. I'm just going to tell you exactly which 2 tones that you want to really use the most. You want to use a neutral tone, like the way that I'm talking now. Like, this is authoritative. Like, you go, yeah, I am down. You're going to listen to me. Like, that's very authoritative, and it comes across kind of like an asshole. We don't want to do that. But if you come across neutral, this is friendly. Like, we're on the same playing field. We're equals. Or a supplicative tone. And a supplicative tone is when you kind of sound excited, or when things kind of sound like a question. Like, oh my gosh, that is so amazing. Right? You end with that up tone. It can sound exciting. So when you're responding to somebody, like, again, when I went to this dinner, this guy named Mark went to hike in Machu Picchu, and wow, that was amazing, because it really was. And you can use that tone. Some of this is going to come across natural. But what we don't want to do, not only do we not want to come across authoritative, like, oh yeah, that was really good. Right? That's authoritative. Avoid that. But what we also want to avoid is not speaking up enough with your tone. So your volume and your tone matter, right? If you speak a little sheepish, like, oh, well, that's not going to come across with the same body language that you came in with. And now we go full circle. You can see how your body language is going to affect the volume and the tone in which you speak with, all of which helps portray the right image and confidence that you want to portray. And again, if you're very confident in your curiosity into other people, and you remember their names, and you have the right mindset, you are going to make really good first impressions easily. Now, this is just general tactics and general principles. I do go through this in more details on either some one-on-one coaching or through the Highly Effective Communicators program. So if you're trying to make a good first impression amongst groups of people, or if you're trying to make a good first impression because you're going to be on a stage delivering a message, there's a few things that are very tailored to those scenarios that I'm more than happy to help you with if you are so interested. Or if you're looking for more free information, just continue to listen to this podcast because I am here for you. Hopefully this is helpful. If it does help you on your next encounter, please let me know. I will be very, very curious to see how this works for you. And until next time, I'll talk to you later. As we come to the end of another episode of Attractive Relationships, I want to express my gratitude to you for tuning in. Your support really does mean the world to me. Now, if this episode brought you any value, I would truly appreciate it if you shared this podcast with anyone that you think could benefit from our discussions on effective communication and relationship building. Until next time, remember, great relationships start with great communication. So stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep building those attractive relationships.